It's been over 2 years since my first playthrough of Elden Ring. I wanted to try another FromSoftware game without the complexity of Dark Souls or the old mechanics of Demon Souls. So I chose an honored, revered title made for a console, the PS5, that I own, and it was love at first sight. My main issue was knowing nothing going in, not knowing whether those Elden Ring mechanics, coupled with my recent enthusiasm for all things Resident Evil, would even matter with a slightly different lean than the more polished and refined Elden Ring. I was in for a task, but I didn't know how much of a task it would be. I knew there were a few mechanics that Elden Ring taught me to love that I wasn't going to be able to access. Torrent doesn't exist in Bloodborne, so you have to navigate on foot. The ability to replenish health by doing damage in a certain time frame after taking it, and different multipliers and ways to enhance my damage and weaponry aside from leveling up. Every decision on whether you're going to carry more into battle will cost you something. The fact there is no map, you don't know where you're at, you don't know where you're going, and you also know that at some point you could just stumble upon a boss. And I learned that the hard way right off the rip. Why? Okay.
1 hour later.
Big. Heavy. Bang, almost there. Don't greed, don't greed, don't greed, don't greed. One more. Yes. Ooh. If you run out of bullets or vials, you have to go get them off of bodies, off of areas, or buy more. You can't endlessly fight bosses if they are whooping your ass. At the beginning, you get a litmus test of Father Gascoigne, and that really sets you up for what to expect. The parries in this fight are awesome and sometimes exaggeratingly infuriating. I died a couple times to what I thought I was quick enough on the draw to get, but just became a trade. But when you fought a boss enough times to know what they had for breakfast, at that point, you know when to parry and when to punish. And that's one of the crucial things about FromSoftware games that I love, is the routine and the attack moveset becomes second nature. The Witch of Hemwick is a classic. You find the witch, you backstab her. You find the second witch, you backstab her. You don't let them res. If you're an idiot like me, they probably get resed once or twice. But you just do this dance where you evade the attacks and hopefully don't get hit by their AoE blasts. If you just play smart, you can win that fight. After rushing past giants in the very menacing and haunting looking cathedral ward, I made my way to the door that let me access Old Yarnum.
Didn't you see the warning? Turn back at once. Old Yarnum, burned and abandoned by men, is now home only to beasts.
Where's he
They
at?
are of no harm to those alive. Turn
And
back,
here's where my real
or
trouble
the
began.
hunter will face the hunter.
Are we dead ass? First trying to get down to the area's optional boss. Bro, what is that? Hey, bud. This might be the first time I've ever cursed out a specific boss in a FromSoft video game. Any video game for that matter. But the Bloodstarved Beast was no joke for me, and it was an ordeal, even with the OP weapon I'd chosen from the start, to get that sucker down. Dying to poison mid-animation to heal. It's one of those things you don't understand until you've experienced it, but it makes the final fight where you vanquish a boss that much more rewarding. So yeah, I upgraded a tiny couple of levels in vitality to get this sucker dead, to get this bastard gone. Feels like an out when you level a little bit and you first try the boss. It feels like you just took the easy way out. That little bit of vitality actually showed up in the final run. A W's a W no matter how you get it. Sometimes that's all you need. Vicar Amelia really wasn't that much of an issue. Sure, her healing is annoying. Sure, she's got some similar moves, but once you have those ingrained in your muscle memory, it's a piece of cake. And so we got to the Forbidden Woods pretty quickly after the Bloodstarved Beast met his demise. I'll never forget the Forbidden Woods, getting stuck and running in circles multiple times before I found, and even after I found, elevators, and shortcuts. No map in the Forbidden Woods with an imbecile like me behind the sticks, toast. Even getting to the area's boss was a hassle. The necessity of understanding the area you're advancing through is one of the things I love about FromSoftware titles. Sometimes you can just run by everybody. You have ranged attacks. You have people who are using different weapons. You have different environmental hazards that you have to be prepared for. And the Forbidden Woods are a good example of that. I also love boss ideation, creativity, and variance. And the Shadows of Yharnam give you that. You fight 3 shadows at the end of the Forbidden Woods. Pick your own strategy. I found the best way was to isolate them one by one and attack what hurts you most often first. Similarly to the solely ranged Firebender, you can leave the katana wielder for last because it's only melee. The combination shadow gives me the most trouble, so I started with that one. Taking down the biggest threat and then walking down the other 2 wasn't as heavy a burden when you can isolate the final 2. Rom was a long fight for me because I am very particular about the enemies I let live and the enemies I don't when there is a main boss and there's a bunch of little minions. The way I thought about it in my first playthrough, not knowing much, was leaving a couple of enemies could prevent the main boss from shifting phases and like teleporting away. So I wanted to try to get as much damage in as possible when I could. Now that backfired because when I went to punish and finish Rom, it's just absolute calamity. That pesky little spider I let live killed my ass. Dark Beast Parl was a thrill to fight, even though the auto lock just didn't work. Eventually, I just had to give up and hope that I was hitting limbs, because sometimes you'd be in perfect position and Parl would step, or you'd be in perfect position and all of a sudden you just airball. But once you figure out which attacks to avoid, when to stay away, when to rush in and do damage, and where to really sit on the hind legs to get good damage and also be ready to scamper out, this fight and this boss can melt. After taking a bit of a side quest in the carriage to Cainhurst, Ligarius is super fun to deal with, learning his attacks despite him spamming the same move over and over again when you're close to him. There's certain moves that you just have to learn through playing. Learning you can auto lock onto the sword he plunges into the ground. Making most of the fighting melee, kind of chaining his attacks into a predictable pattern allows you to parry him and eventually finish him off. Look at how little health we have. Look at how we are out of parryables. No bullets. Bang. After running and teleporting through Yargul, I found myself at the One Reborn. I really struggled with this early on. At this point, you gotta level your weapon a little bit. The trick in this fight is you take care of the minions on the balcony, and no more heals, no more splash damage from the side as you're trying to take out the main boss. On my successful run, A, I evaded pretty well. I knew what attacks were coming because I'd fought the boss 10 plus times. But B, I didn't get the debilitating attacks. I was able to avoid the thrashing limbs. I was able to target the actual human body. And I think those things helped. After making your way through the Nightmare of Mensis, you find a Mikolash, and you chase Mikolash. I can't tell you how many times I just ran in circles, chasing him through the halls, falling to my death in areas, trying to progress, getting one shot when you get him to a sliver of HP because you haven't encountered it yet and you don't know what he's about to unleash. All in all, this fight, you just have to pursue him. You just have to understand his attacks and not get caught off guard if you get hit by one of them at some point. Let's go. Murgo's Wet Nurse is a super fun fight. I love the Edward Scissorhands complex that the boss has. Being on the side, getting to the back of the boss is super critical in this fight. She might disappear and have a clone as a secondary attacker. Some of these delayed scissor moves are crazy. Quick slashing movements, but then you also have some delayed uppercuts that really catch you off guard and do a ton of damage. A super satisfying fight to win. There we go. Bang! Gurman is an absolutely exquisite fight. He's got his scythe, he shoots at you. Because he is a hunter, he carries a firearm. But if you get in good positions and he has some of those longer combos, you can definitely go in and get a parry off. That roll attack got me like 15 times. I kept trying to shoot him out of it like I could parry him, and I just couldn't. But once you figure out how it's strung together and where you can target, it all comes together. Super fun fight, super fun opponent, and I think a very well written end to the story of the Hunter's Dream. Bang! Bang! If you've consumed 3 of the third of an umbilical cord, at that point you would fight the secret final boss in Bloodborne. Directly after defeating Gehrman, you would fight the Moon Presence. The Moon Presence was a fun fight. I felt like I was doing a ton of damage in that final fight with Ludwig's sword. It just felt like some of the AoEs were a little annoying. An ultralight beam just shot directly at you that you couldn't really avoid. The chunkiness of the damage you do is super fun in a visually stunning environment for the end of the game. Bang. Bang, baby. Nightmare slain. Cinema ending. Bloodborne in 2026 is well worth your time. Even at 30 frames per second on the PS5, this game looks stunning throughout, and the bosses are elite. The gameplay is super satisfying to get down. The mechanics, from the parrying to the trick weapon transfer, everything in this game has multitudes of layered complexity, so replayable. You can't respec, but you can harness different weapons, you can play with different styles, because there's so much variety in what you can do. And that's exactly what you want from a FromSoftware game.